We are on the fifth commandment. Are you guys on the fifth commandment with Adam Hamilton? Did we catch up?
Yes.
I did those two so that we can be in alignment. Okay. Fifth commandment. I should know this by heart because I used to always tell it to my kids. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. So he gives us an exhortation and comes with a promise. Okay? Honor your father and your mother so that your days may be long. So as your pastor, it's my job to interpret ancient languages for you. Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, Latin, then female linguistics. Okay? Words to be cautious around. Fine. Okay? This is a word a woman uses to end an argument, and you need to shut up. Okay? Just explain fine. 5 minutes. Now this is an awkward term because if she says, give me 5 minutes while she's getting dressed, that really means about a half an hour. But if she says, I want you to do something while you're watching the game, 5 minutes actually means 5 minutes. Okay? Nothing. Okay, when a woman says nothing, this is the calm before the storm. All right? This means something, and you need to be on your toes. And arguments that usually begin with nothing usually end up with fine. All right? Just helping you put the sentences together here. Go ahead. Okay, this is a dare. It's not a permission. Okay? Don't do it. The loud sigh. This is actually a word. Okay? It's a non-verbal statement, often misunderstood by men. A loud sigh means she thinks you're an idiot and wonders why she's wasting her time talking to you anymore. That's okay. This is a dangerous statement. A woman usually makes to a man, that's okay. She wants to think long and hard before deciding how and when you will pay for that mistake. Okay? Thanks. All right? Don't overthink this one. If she says thanks, just say you're welcome. But if she says thanks a lot, do not say you're welcome. Okay? That will get you in a heap of trouble. Okay? It's pure sarcasm. She's not thanking you. Don't worry about it, I got it. Okay, what this means is she has told you over and over again what you were supposed to do. You did not do it. Now she's going to do it. And that's a bad situation for you because you're going to say what's wrong and she's going to say nothing. And then you have to remember number 3, okay? Nothing. It's not it's the calm before the storm. All right, guys. Hopefully you were paying attention and you now have insight on female linguistics. So the fifth commandment, it's built into the very structure of human society. I used to point out to the kids, okay, notice first, honor your father and your mother. Okay, that's the order. Kids, okay, I'm first. My daughter pointed out, Dad, you're the head, but Mom is the neck that moves the head. Okay. And Leviticus 19:3, it reverses the order. Every one of you shall revere his mother and father. Okay, so just in case a guy was going to say men first, Leviticus, which by the way has both the first and second greatest commandments in it. Okay, it puts the order in the other way, like women first. And moms are a child's primary source of love. Dads imbue a child's sense of identity. Okay, both have very important roles. And I feel like single moms have the biggest challenge because they have to do both roles because there's not a man around to do that. Or worse, when there is a man around and he's not doing it, and a woman has to step up and also help out with the child's identity as well as being the source of compassion. I think it's interesting that the command to love your father and your mother come directly after our commands to the Father. Okay? Our duties to God. In fact, the same penalty for blaspheming against God is for dishonoring your father and your mother. The death penalty. Okay? I pointed this out to my kids too. And Jesus quotes the commandment 2 times. Okay? There was a situation happening in Jesus' day where the religious leaders would use the word korban. Whatever you did for me, I'm giving it, whatever you gave me, I'm giving it to God so that I don't have to have responsibility for you. And Jesus called them on this. You found a tricky way to basically rob your parents' inheritance and then not take care of them. Because you're supposed to take care of your father and your mother, which is different in our society than it used to be. Back in the old days, parents moved into the house when they got older. Now we put them into nursing homes, okay? So my mom and I, we have this conversation regularly, all right? I told her, listen, I'll make space for you in the garage, okay?
With a Harley.
Well, that's the problem, okay? And you know, Jesus, he called the religious leaders on the spiritual games that they played. And it's interesting that he took the 5th commandment very seriously, all right? He lived in the house till he was 30. Now, in our day, we call that extended adolescence. I've actually been called to numerous homes to tell the kids that they have to move out. Mom and Dad want you to understand it's time to go. It's time to move out, to take your bad attitude and your selfish disposition and get out of the house and make a way for yourself. And the kids are so offended. You know, they really are. It's mind-blowing. Jesus stayed at home and he provided for the family. Okay? And by the way, when he was on the cross, he provided for his mother. You know, his best friend John, I need you to take care of my mom because I'm got a bigger agenda. I'm saving humanity from its sin, and I need you to take care of my mom. And by the way, when they went to Ephesus, John went to Ephesus, he brought Mary with him. So it indicates that everywhere John went, he took Mary. Not a bad mother-in-law to have, right? I mean, I have a good one, okay? But could you imagine the Mother Mary as your mother-in-law? Whoa. Okay, that would be a good one. And when you research different cultures, you find that even the bad cultures still took responsibility for honoring their parents. Plato, he felt that the second duty to be paid after the gods was to the parents. Okay, Aristotle felt it was our debt before self-preservation that honor is due to our parents like unto the gods. Now, in the Roman days, it's a little bit awkward because the father was given full authority to run a child's life until he died. Okay? And he could have his child put to death, his son put to death. And there are horrible stories about, you know, power struggles within the family and the father just gets rid of his child. So that was a different kind of negative culture. Twice in the New Testament, the commandment is endorsed that children obey the parents in the Lord. This is right. Okay, it's the first commandment with the promise, so that it'll be well with you. In Ephesians 6:1, then also in Colossians 3:20, children obey your parents in everything. This pleases the Lord. So this is the calling that we were supposed to do, and it's kind of hard to do when you have awkward parents. And a lot of you had awkward parents, okay? You had the old school parents. In old school, we're not as emotionally connected to you the way our generation is, okay? My generation. Now the generation behind me, they've taken it to a whole nother level where we raise little self-oriented, entitled children, and it's created a different culture, okay? So somewhere along the line, we made big mistakes raising our kids. But I grew up in the age when you didn't even say, I love you. You know, Grandpa, I love you, the same, he would say back. Couldn't even say, I love you back to his grandson. And so, when God, and here's where we start to get into the fatherhood of God. In the commandment where he says God will visit, you know, the punishment on the children for the third and fourth generations of those who hate me. You know, this is kind of a weird statement. And as you unpack it, you start to realize, first of all, what do we know about the nature of God? He's really not that much of a punisher. Okay, but what sin does is it has its ramifications, its consequences, and God will allow, all the way down to the third and fourth generation, your sin gets passed down to your children's sin, it gets passed down to their grandchildren's sin, it gets passed down. It's called a family stronghold. And, you know, it's weird I met my father, my real father, I haven't met him in person yet, but we've talked a bunch of times. Amazing how many times, how many situations, how many personality traits I have of his, how many similar situations we were in, how much I'm like him, and I've never met him. Not one time. Okay? And so wow. So this genetic thing is real. And some of his bad habits I've noticed in my son, okay? I don't know how it skipped a generation, but it was surprising though. Well, Dad, but I never met you. How is it that, you know, we have similar traits? And you know, really, an abusive parent passes down to his child that abuse, and you know, that child, that becomes their model, and they pass down a different model, and you know, the same model, and it takes a Christian to have God intersect the path and say, okay, we're going to stop this negative pattern. We're going to bring about a brand new way of dealing with kids. I was watching Everybody Loves Raymond, and the guys, they decide they found a loophole that there's a therapist that they go to see, but they don't really go to see him. They go out and have a party every Tuesday. And so, you know, they'll come back. How was, you know, the wives, how was therapy? Oh, we're so different. Oh, you know, they're not even going to therapy. But when they are sitting around, they're talking about things. And so, if you know Everybody Knows Raymond, the father is just a horrible father, okay? He's not good. And they asked him about his father, and he goes, oh, well, I used to get beaten every day. And then the guys are like, well, how come you don't beat us? He goes, well, I didn't like it. I thought, you know, I don't want to hit you guys. And there was the break in the family. His father used to hit him, so he hits. But guess what? He stops it. And that's what happens when Christian values and Jesus enters into our path. Suddenly we break patterns that normally would get passed down. Well, how does one honor father and mother? You know, Hemingway, he had a mom who was a Christian, and she had sent him a letter explaining that a mother's life is like a bank. Every child enters the world with a large, inexhaustible bank account, and the child continually makes withdrawals and no deposits during the early years, but later when the child grows up, has the responsibility to replenish the bank account. And she spelled out how he should replenish the bank account. Pay all my bills, send me flowers, okay? Don't neglect your duties to God. And you know, he hated his mother who was trying to manipulate him. And she actually sent him his dad's shotgun, which he used to kill himself. Okay? So, yeah, kind of a statement to mom. All right? A statement to dad. And see, this was a Christian woman trying to, well, instead of loving her child, trying to manipulate her child. All right? And suddenly we get into our own parenting situations. I don't know about you, but I can think back to a few moments. Oh, I wish I could do them over again. I wish I just would have not handled it this way. I wish I would have kept my words back. I wish I would have stepped in. I would, we all have those I wishes. Okay? We probably did a pretty good job. But still, and some of us, we might not have did a good job because the parent that we had did not do a good job, and it's hard to uproot. You know what's interesting? It's hard to uproot the right attitude. This is how you're supposed to do things. And you find that kids, they have their own personalities, okay? They don't always do things the way they're supposed to do. I got 2 kids, and when they were little, I'd say they'd fight to see who was going to be in the front seat. Okay, I'd say, okay, both of you get in the back. And my son, the firstborn, he would dutifully get in the back. And my daughter, the secondborn, would say, okay, now Dad, okay, now listen. And the negotiations would begin. Okay, 2 completely different kinds of personalities, and she would not just get in the back. And I could yell at her, get in the back, and break her spirit, or I'd figure out, okay, now listen, it's not fair, blah, blah, blah. If you love them and talk to them and reason with them, I think you create a dynamic where the children honor you because you honor them. I had this one guy in my church, and he used to say, we had 7 kids in the family, and I had 8 votes. In other words, they did everything he said. And he was so proud of that, except his wife had to do so much damage control because for some reason, none of the kids ever wanted to come back to the house for the holidays. Okay? They despised their dads. And guess what? Okay? He earned it by being too hard, being too iron-fisted, and taking his Christianity, by the way, and beating the children over the head with that. None of them wanted to be Christians. Was it that they were rejecting Jesus, or was it because they were rejecting him? Okay? So when you are ministering to your children who have their own children, it might be okay to put a new approach into motion and say, instead of you ought to do this and you ought to do that, to come alongside with some understanding and some compassion and listening. I don't know about you, but I find myself, the kids come into my presence and I go into lecture mode. Okay, lecture mode. And I watch their faces glaze over and them lose interest in the conversation and trying to figure out how quickly they can get out of my presence, And I figured out, okay, no lecture mode. And when I catch myself, I go, I'm sorry, I'm in lecture mode. Pull back out of it, ask them questions, invest in them, because what I really want is the relationship. And then what they really don't want is to hear another lecture from Dad. Okay? It's kind of funny. I never made my kids go to church. I just didn't. One time I remember, like, guys, I need you to go to church because the associate pastor is going to leave, and I want my family to represent that we were together to honor that person. But other than that, it was their decision, and they always decided to go, which was, but I didn't want to be that dad who made you go to church, because then you would start to have an attitude against the Lord. So, I don't know. Here's the thing about our kids. Humans have the longest helplessness period of all species on earth. You can't leave them alone all the way up to 10 years old. I remember I would tell my kids when they were like elementary school, early years, I said, listen, I'm going to bed, you can turn off the lights, all right? And it would just blow some people's minds, don't they have a bedtime? Well, yeah, I already read the Bible to them. We already said our prayers. We already laid in bed and chatted for an hour about their day. you know, and they got to that elementary, you know, 3rd, 4th grade where they, you know, we had a relationship where they still hung out with us. We actually liked their presence. I used to take them on night walks, you know, blow my wife's mind. I would come home from a late night work and get my little guy out of bed, and she had put him to bed. Like, what are you doing? I go, well, I haven't seen him all day. You know, and I would wake him up and, you know, we'd play with him and hang out with him, and then I'd put him back to bed and he'd go to sleep. And, you know, that was breaking all the rules, but, you know, my son turned out to be kind of a cool little kid, okay? But it was different because my son, when we had the crib at the end of the bed, and you'd see his head come up over the bed, and he'd have these wide eyes, okay? And my daughter, she'd come up over the bed and she'd have this evil grin, you know? Okay. She was ready for excitement and adventure, and my son was, you know, in awe that, you know, it was just 2 different personalities. But here's the deal. It's our job to care for them. And what's really weird is they never stop being your children. You never stop pouring into them. You never stop cultivating. And, you know, a word from mom, an advice, a perspective. You know, I called my mom, I don't know, a few months ago, probably like 6 months ago, and I was dealing with something. You know, and I don't know that my 86-year-old mother can teach me anything, you know. And I asked her a question, I needed advice, and I kind of, you know, what do you think? And she gave me this Bible verse. And it was the exact words that I needed. And it was a little bit left to where I wanted to go, but it was exactly what God would have said to me. And I'm thinking, you know, just when you think you've outgrown mom's advice, boom. You know, I was expecting her to go, oh, my poor little boy, this is a horrible situation. You know, no. Boom. This is how God would want you to handle things. And so I guess what I'm telling you is you still have a voice in your kids' lives. And, you know, with the grandkids, love them. Let the parents do the hard work. You do the joyful stuff. You do the spiritual stuff. And you kind of have to respect your kids' parenting styles. I have a friend who's I mentored in the faith, and this is a sadness. He allows his parents to see his children half an hour every holiday. That's all. And it is a punishment for the way his dad treated him, and because his mom allowed his dad to treat him that way, the kids have very little interaction with those parents. And he goes to church and he loves the Lord and he likes to talk to me about spiritual stuff. But when I go rolling in that direction, conversation stops. And he'll get off the phone. Because he will not forgive his father for being that dominant, tyrant, negative voice. And my children you're not going to have access to my children. And now the kids are in high school, okay? And doesn't matter. And the parents plan on giving him $1 million when they die. You're good, I'll give it to the kids. Not willing to forgive. And if you listen to the dad, well, I don't know what's wrong with him. And there's the problem. Now, if the dad would say, you know, wow, did I make a mess of things when I was parenting you? And as I look back, I wish that I would have had a different approach. But you know, I grew up with the German dad, and he was this way, and I just automatically went, none of that. Just blames his son for being the way he is. And there comes a moment when you and I have to take the emotional maturity and the spiritual depth, put it into motion, and recognize I need to do an apology here. Recognize I need to do some healing here. Be aware of the fact that, you know what? I don't know that I'm in the right. I feel like I'm in the right, but what's more important? Being right or being in relationship? I'm going to argue relationship. So, what I'm telling you is deep, because I think most of us have some problems with mom and dad or our children, okay? And, you know, it's just, if you bring the love of Jesus, if you bring a merciful perspective, if you bring an empowering, you know, presence, this really changes things. Okay, it really, really does. Well, back in the old day, they used to decide whether they want to have a kid, and if they didn't, they would expose it, which means put it out on the curb like trash. This was a normal experience in the Roman world. It was a normal experience in the entire world except for the German tribes and the Hebrew culture. They're the only two cultures that didn't just put mostly girls out. If it's a boy, let it live. If it's a girl, expose it. And then either wild animals and dogs would eat them, or bad people would get them to use their brains for spells. Girls would be turned into stock for brothels. Boys would be turned into slaves. Christians would find these children on the streets, scoop them up, take them home, raise them as their own. And this had a big impact on Christianity expanding in Rome, because all these little girls were brought up to be Christians and they were marrying Roman boys. And you know how it is when you get into the household. You know, mama runs the household, and Christianity would be shared and embraced. And guess what? That was one of the ways that Christianity took over the Roman world. Isn't that powerful? Being willing, and I actually know somebody who took in a child that was a great burden, a great expense. Now we won't be able to take trips to Disney World because I got to raise this wild child. But they were willing to deny themselves in order to invest in another person. And this is kind of the selflessness. Now you and I get to mentor people this way. You know, when you find somebody who's struggling, to invest in them, to step into them, to care for them. There's nothing like a surrogate father or mother. That, they're just as important to me as, my real mom. People that were there for me when I was all by myself, okay? And so, I don't know, you think, well, this is ancient history, actually, in today's culture. I mean, it was definitely going on in China. In China, they had the one-child rule, and if it was a woman, okay? So they wanted a boy, so there's not a lot of girls. And right now, India is about to pass China in the population zone, and the next 10 countries that will be expanding in population, China's not one of them. Because they cut off the access to the girls, and now, okay, it's going to be an awkward culture. Well, so what do we do with our parenting style? Like I already alluded to, that we raise really entitled little children. And we tell them, you can do anything. And then they get out into the world and they get creamed, and then they lose their confidence. Or, they're perpetually students. I'm 35 years old and I'm getting my third degree. Well, you should be getting the third degree. Why aren't you at work? How long do I have to put up for all this education that you're now going to go work as a barista at the Starbucks? Okay, this is not what I, poured all this money into your life for. Okay, and this entitlement, it's become an awkward culture. We just went through it the last couple of years, right? We got to see this weird group of kids, and what happened? Bad parenting. That's what happened. Okay? Not us. I'm talking about the Lutherans. Okay?
The Lutheran? Methodist.
The Methodists, yeah, the Methodists. Lutherans are tougher than the Methodists. No, what happened is, we culture changed and lots of things happened. We went through the Vietnam War, then we got the free love, and we had the drug culture, then we got the computer culture. Everybody's got more information at their hand than ever before. The world just has transformed, and it created a different culture. And one of the things that got jettisoned is religion, because I think the strong thumb down on this is how you have to live, rather than explaining Christianity to people, introducing them to the love of God, not the God that wants to send them to hell if you don't do what you're supposed to do. Okay? People just go, no thank you, I don't want anything to do with your God, and walk away forever. So, you and I can fix that narrative by saying, I've discovered a brand new angle to God. And then you pray about it, you share your faith with joy and love, you stay committed to the family, and then you're dropping seeds that God will then come. And you have to know there's a lot of Christianity out there. It's not talked about, but there's a lot of Christians out there. If you want to go to some of these young churches, there's thousands of them in the church. Okay? God is not, he might be dead in the secular media, but he is not dead in the world circulating around us. But if you were at the 9:30 service and you saw all those kids that take the summer and go and share their faith, go to Cocoa Beach, share their faith, go downtown Orlando, share their faith, people are giving their lives to Jesus, okay? This is happening. Okay, we got some kids out there that are trying to share their faith. And so, this one kid, he said to his mother, here's the 1,000 things that I want for my birthday. It was a list of 1,000 things. Her parents go, wow, that's a lot of things there. Okay, how about this? How about we do 1,000 things for the homeless? Let's make 1,000 breakfast burritos and give them out to the homeless. And they did that and went downtown and started giving out breakfast burritos. And so far they've given away 130,000 breakfast burritos. Because what they put into motion was not the consumer, but let's be a sharer. Let's invest in the people around us. Okay? Well, did you ever say, do this because I said so? Yep. Again, it never worked with my daughter. The negotiation would be underway. You had to learn how to speak so that the negotiation would never happen. I would have to say what I wanted, why I wanted, what was gonna happen if you didn't do what I said, what will happen if you do what I say. I mean, I had to do all the negotiation up front just to get her to, take her plates down from her bedroom back to the kitchen, I would open up drawers and there would be plates of food in the drawers. Okay? And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I'm wondering why we have an ant problem in the house. She was, I used to do her laundry, and then she wouldn't put the clothes away. She would live out of the basket and then just decide, put the whole basket back, all the clean clothes back into the laundry for me to do again, Finally, I grabbed it. This was still folded, and I smelled it, and this was still clean, and I realized, you know what? She's a little more lazy than she should be. So I can't say that I was the best father at that moment when I exploded, You got me doing your laundry. Okay? Anyways, I love her. She just took a bunch of kids to camp. 7 kids gave their lives to Jesus. 3 kids just got baptized on Sunday afternoon. Kids that were not connected to the Lord are now. They all wanted to come and find out what happened at camp. She could see there was a different attitude, a different disposition, a different openness to God. So, yeah. So it is wonderful. I'm still a little frustrated about the The laundry, though. And here's what you get to see with God. Children need encouragement. I want you to hear this. Encouragement will do what criticism is powerless to accomplish. Criticism, just you tune it out. Encouragement, it opens up your children. My son, he's 29 years old. He's just a really beautiful guy. But, sometimes, we work out together and I go, what's wrong with you? And there's just something off. And I just build him up. I remind him of his dreams. I encourage him. I pull out his good stuff. I explain away his bad, I blame it on his mother, it's bad stuff. And, he needs it. He's 29. He needs it. And you know how I know he needs it? Because I still need it. And you still need it. Encouraging words help us get through those difficult chapters of our lives. And some of us, we've had some bad parents. And how do we honor them? This is a tough one. How do we honor the bad parents? That parent does not deserve to be honored. You know what I read this morning in my devotional? Ephesians chapter 6. That it says, slaves, obey your masters as you would the Lord. And there's the key. Obey the word of the Lord and apply it to your parents as you would do for the Lord. I'm not loving my bad parent because they were a bad parent. I'm loving the Lord, and that's why I'm going to extend them grace they don't deserve. Extend forgiveness that they have not earned. Open up a relationship that should be cut off so that I can get them into the presence of the Lord and they can have a transformed personality because Jesus is now going to enter their lives. That's how you deal with a bad parent. All right? Or somebody else in your life, whoever it might be. That's the secret. You don't earn it, but I'm going to bring Jesus to you because I'm obeying the Father who, if I make this move, will be excited that you're making this move and then decide to show up and do the miraculous. Okay? And one more thing about our kids. Do you know how often I've had senior saints tell me, hey, do you text your kids? I don't text. They want to talk to me. They can pick up the phone and call me. And then they're upset. Why don't the kids ever call? Because that's not the way they operate. They're on to, they have forms of communication that I don't even have, Can't even think of the name of it right now. It's on my phone here or something, but, I'm an emailer and a texter. But, they're doing tweets and, all these other things. And we have to learn how to speak their language. We have to, as the mature Christian, find out how to be in their presence. Galatians 6:1, you who are spiritual, restore those. So if you're spiritual, that's our calling to figure out how to speak the love language of our children. It's on you. And let's say your kids don't like you. Okay? And then you decide to love them anyways, and it's a consistent voice. Guess what? Love will break down barriers. And the next thing you know, you're leaving a spiritual legacy. I tried to connect with my kid. He's in the gaming age. You guys know about gaming? Did you know that the gaming industry, where they play their video games, makes more money than the movie industry and the music industry combined? Gaming. Ben's a gamer. Okay? And so I decided, I'm going to connect with my son. He's a gamer. So I come up next to his game and I pick up the, what do you call it? That thing. It has about 12 different moves. Okay? It's got 12 different moves. It goes up, down. They operate it. They fly. All kinds of stuff happens. Now, I used to play Pong. Boom. Boom. Okay? And my son, he's so cool. He goes, Dad, I appreciate the effort, but you can put that down. All right? He's so cool. Even yesterday, I told him, this song came from that album. And he goes, no, I think it came from another one. No, I know that it came from this one. And he doesn't say anything, and I look it up, and he was right. He doesn't get into an argument. If you want to be an idiot, Dad, that's okay. He's just so smooth about things. But here's the deal. I think we have to be the spiritually mature ones in our relationships with our grandchildren, with our kids, with our parents if they're still alive, okay? I don't know. Back in the day, the aunts and the uncles and the grandparents used to all live in the same house, and now, it's just not that way. We're too busy. We've got 2 career families. We can't adequately provide for somebody. But, the Bible says that you're supposed to provide for, our parents. My mom brings that up. And I said, well, yeah, the Bible also says a good parent leaves an inheritance for her children, okay? So she handed me a 20. I don't know. I think it's a shame that we'll leave hundreds of thousands of dollars to children that have no interest in our primary value, a relationship with Jesus Christ. I watch kids get a boatload of money and they blow it on drugs and crashing cars and dissipating all that great wealth that the parents worked so hard so that they could leave an inheritance to kids who are against their God, against their faith. And I do have an opinion about that. I think, you know what? You probably don't want to give them all the cash. Maybe you should invest in the ministry of the Church of Jesus Christ. That would be a statement. Hey, by the way, this is my value system. But I'm not trying to fleece your families so I can, have a bigger bank account here at the church. I will say this. I think it's a conversation worth having with your kids. Judy's, when her father died and the reading of the will happened, in the reading of the will was the profession of his faith. Before you get any money, I want you to know who my God was and why I believed in him. His last move was to share his faith. Okay? Well, let me close things up here. There's 2 different ways to run a household. You can have the sanitized, hygienic, antiseptic, sterilized, institutional household, okay, where everything was in place. Or you can have a little bit of a mess and a lot of love. It's kind of funny, when my wife and I got together, we lived in a museum. Everything was perfect. And then the kids came. And, I said, okay, you got to make a decision. Do you want to live in a museum or do you want to have a house full of love? And she said, I'll take a house full of love, which meant I had to do all the extra work to make it look good all the time. But it was a great decision because it was okay for the house to get dirty for a day or 2. It was okay for there to be a little bit of a mess instead of putting the dishes away, we took them to bed or we took them on walks or it was a different persona, a different atmosphere. And I think that's the way it should be. I realized, I had to feed them. I always had the morning routine. My kids, for 18 years of their lives, I was the first thing they saw in the morning. I was the one who fed them breakfast, changed their diapers, took them to school. I did the morning routine. All because one time I didn't get up at night. Okay? It's a bad decision not to get up that one time. It's for the rest of their lives I had the morning routine. And it was the best morning of my life.
I just got to pour into the kids, talk to them on the way to school, feed them, play with them, get on my stomach and put on the videos that they were going to watch. Well, they were just 2 and 3 years old, 4 years old. It was beautiful. So, what do we do with all this? How do you respond to a child who fails? Well, according to Moses, that child, depending upon how badly they failed, should be stoned to death. Okay? But Jesus comes along and he introduces us to the prodigal father. The prodigal son's father. Who, when the kid asks for something stupid, he gives it to him. And then worries about the kid and watches, is he coming home yet? And when he sees him, runs to him and embraces him and doesn't even pay attention to his apology. Just restores him back into the family. Because that's how the Father treats us. And that's how we're supposed to deal with our children who've made a mess of things, who have a problem with you. And let's just say your kid has a problem with you. Imagine sending a letter, and then another letter, and then another letter, and then still another letter. And just continue to show love and ask forgiveness and seek to be restored. And you pray over those letters. What do you think the chances are of breaking down that wall? I think they increase greatly. Okay? So never stop giving up on love with your kids. Well, how are we doing on time? I'm rambling here. So, how about this? This one daughter, her dad always made lunch. And every time he made lunch, he wrote a note in it. And the notes would be, these are popsicles, not momsicles. Okay? He always had a little bit of fun, always playing a little bit, always encouraging and trying to make her laugh. But one day, she's at middle school, and the note falls out, and somebody else reads it, and the whole table of girls start howling with laughter. She couldn't have been more embarrassed, right? Well, she goes home, Dad, you cannot write any more notes. That's done, it's over with. Well, he doesn't care, he writes another note. And so the next day at lunch, when she opens up her bag, all the girls lean in. What did your dad write for you today? They were excited. They don't have that from their dad. They don't have that special touch, that special love, that precious investment. And so Dad did this all through middle school, all through high school, all through her college days. And then her senior year in college, every Friday, everybody knew that she was going to get a note because the return address was the hunk. Okay? Everybody loved her dad. He left a legacy until one Friday it didn't come because guess what happened? Got in a car accident and died. And you go, wow. What is this girl going to remember of her father? What kind of legacy did he leave? Did he invest? So that when the Lord called him home, he had left a legacy of love, an example of I care for you. I'm suggesting you text, you email, you write a letter, you make a phone call. You create your rhythm of saying, I love you to the people in your life. And you know what? I think that's what it means to honor your father and your mother. Whether it's this way, that way, the other way. That's how we're supposed to live. Amen?
Amen.